The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Farmers Insurance Open DraftKings picks and preview. Rick Gehman from the Rick Run Good YouTube channel and CBS podcasts is going to be joining me here in a second. But first, I'm going to let you know about some giveaways. Number one, smash the like button for the video. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me your favorite play under $7,500 this week on DraftKings. That's way number one. Way number two, with winners announced every single Monday on the Pat Mayo Experience for a $100 giveaway. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. Leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something you like about this show. Boom. You're going to be in that draw. Plus, if you want to get 20% off, fantasynational.com, which I highly recommend that you do, now that we're back in tournaments that like mean stuff and have giant prize pools, that kind of thing, players you've heard of. fantasynational.com/PME. Get yourself 20% off. Highly recommend you do that. And the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League link on DraftKings is now open. Because of the holiday on Monday, they were like, nah, let's wait until Tuesday. So I believe there's 2,500 spots, maybe more. I don't know. It's at least 2,500 spots. $15 to play, 3 max entry, no rake. The link is in the description of this podcast and video and yesterday's podcast and video if you want to check all that out. Anyway, Rick, what's going on, my man?
Pat, not much. This is a really awesome tournament. I'm super stoked for this one.
So I threw it out on Monday to the viewers of what should I be doing with like my extra days now. So I have my golf days. Obviously, football is still going on past the Super Bowl. Football is still going to have that time. MMA gets a slot every single week. The challenge shall eventually return. So I'll have a show every week recapping the challenge. Not that like most people care, but I care. So I'm going to continue to do that. But some of the stuff was kind of wonky. Like a lot of people were talking about like, hey, you should do like weekend and DraftKings showdown. And I started thinking like, I'm not one to come in and just start working on weekends for no apparent reason. So that's probably it. But you do that stuff. So people just listen to you.
There we go. That'll work. Yeah, I get enough out there. I trust me. It's not fun, especially depending on the time zone when it's like Friday night and you're like gotta update the showdown tools or like yeah. Don't necessarily encourage you making a bunch of content on Friday and Saturday nights for showdown. But I do hope it's something golf related. I might be a little bit biased on that. I hope it's I don't know, something cool.
Well, I'm thinking my Wednesday chats will eventually return once the Super Bowl is over. So then that gets Wednesday all wrapped up. So then I need Friday. What do I do on Friday? I guess is the thing. Do I just bring in Cust and Jeff and just talk to them about whatever?
It's not a bad idea. I mean, let open up the mics for an hour and let those two go at it and see what comes out of it. It's usually pretty gold. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is not necessarily related to you, but I feel like you've tiptoed around this topic, and it's one that I've kind of thought about for a while is how come all major sporting events or golf or whatever it is, like why aren't there like 36 different audio feeds that you can listen to? Like if I want to watch the golf but listen to you and Feinberg, I don't not necessarily do the play-by-play, but just like talk over it. Or if I want to hear like the data guys talk about it, or if I want to have like hometown knuckleheads for the Super Bowl, like I feel like that should be an option. I should be able to choose my audio feed from like 100 different options.
So I'm glad you brought this up because tomorrow's show, Wednesday, on the Pat Mayo Experience, I got Brad Evans to join me like a week or two ago, and we kind of talked about all of this stuff. It was essentially how to integrate gambling and fantasy into the broadcast in a way that would actually work. And one of them was a different audio feed for play-by-play of what's going on. Like people talked about like the Cut Sweat show, and like the Cut Sweat shows are coming back, but they're only going to be for majors, maybe the players as well. I really don't feel like, especially with everything on the West Coast, like I don't want to be in the office until like 11 p.m. every Friday night sweating the cut after my guys are already out. Like for the majors, that's one thing. For a week-to-week tournament, the problem is it works twofold. Like showdown contest, Cut Sweats live, like that really on top of stuff golf content is great, and I like to consume it, but everything that I do really always has a longer shelf life than 3 hours kind of thing. Yeah. And I think it's bad. It's bad bang for my buck to come in and do it just because, I got to go to the studio. Paul needs to be here. Like if it was me at home, I think I would do more of that stuff. But with the way that my show works, I just don't.
Yeah, this is the dilemma that we run into all the time, right? It's really awesome when you can create content that, like, yeah, it expires a day later or 2 days later or sometimes 3 days later. But if you're able to be awesome at that, which you are, like, that's what's super valuable, right? And that's what people strive for because they know they've got you in their podcast feed every single day with something. But you're right, it kind of sucks. It sucks to be like, okay, well, here's a preview, and this is all going to be over in 3 hours from now. This is worthless. It's a very tough task to go through.
Well, I think it's one of the main reasons that we've seen the decline of fantasy baseball, to be perfectly honest with you.
Just too much,
Is
and all the time.
Well, it's not even just too much. It's like you could do, like, theoretically, the best time to do a fantasy baseball or daily fantasy or gambling baseball podcast or basketball, for that matter, with the sports that run every single day would be the moment the last second ends of the games the night before. So you would record it like
Right.
1 a.m. or it'd be actually way better if
Yeah.
you were on the West Coast, and then it wouldn't be an outrageous time. But by the time you wake up, stuff has changed. So if you try to do it in the morning at 7 a.m., you could do like a preview for the day, but to get actual analysis for daily fantasy purposes, like the most crucial information in baseball comes out when the lineups come out, and when you find out who's active and inactive in basketball, which all happens like an hour before games lock. So content for that is basically useless and dead immediately. Like I can see why no one wants to do it.
We will get to the point where Pat Mayo is on 24-hour live feed all the time. You making coffee in the morning, we're going to be getting your insight for the slate. That way we don't miss anything, Pat. You are on top of it 24 hours a day.
It will just be called Pat Mayo Develops a Drug Problem. It'll just be me at the desk, and I'll just be like, yeah, let's go.
What was that movie, Ed TV, where the guy was on TV all the time? That's you, man.
Gosh, Jay, listen, I'm trying to scale that back a little bit. Too much mayo is not going to be good for my brand, I guarantee you. My wife says you got to leave the house. Like, she can't handle me 24 hours a day. That's why I have to come here and do this job. I don't think that people need to be watching me. Anyway, we spent way too much time on this. I do recommend people go check out Wednesday's show. But the last thing I did want to hit on with that was a lot of people asked for a DraftKings strategy show. Or betting strategy show, which I've done. I did it in the context of how I use Fantasy National. I'll put the link to that in the description of this video and podcast if people hadn't checked it out last year. But I know that you have a whole bunch of cool stuff in terms of strategy up on your site as well. Do you have that like sectioned away in a playlist, or is that just like you got to search the videos?
Yeah, if you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/RickRunGood, there is a playlist. I think it's called DFS Strategy or something like that. But yeah, it kind of walks through kind of basic, intermediate, some just idea, like something comes up, right? Like, oh, it's wet this week. Do bombers actually have an advantage? So I'll like deep dive certain topics. So there are things up there. They should be organized in a playlist.
Well, Rick, what's the answer to that question? Is it yes or no?
I think it's yes, but I don't know.
We'll both have to go watch your video on it.
I don't remember. I think it depends on how far bombers carry it. It's not necessarily a total distance thing. It's a carry distance thing.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a total carry and apex height situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Guys that roll it out, for 15% of their total distance aren't as good as guys that fly at 98% of their total distance.
All right, let's jump into that. Again, I'll check the link to my strategy shows inside of... I've done a whole bunch over the years. I did one with Bergerson, did one with Raza. I've done a whole bunch. Maybe we need to re-up on that again at some point. Hey, there's a show. Perfect. Course is at the Farmers Insurance Open. You play the North and South course at Torrey Pines each of the first 2 days, and then there's a cut, then the weekend, all at the South course. The South course is the one that you know, at least the people out there know. You remember it from majors, and it's where the weekend is played every single year. The famous Tiger, I have no kneecap, but I'm going to win the U.S. Open anyway event. This is where that was. All 18 holes on the Monday at the South course. The longest course on tour, 7,700 yards. You do have shot link data, which is really nice. There is no shot link at the North course. But just anyway, between the courses, the North is significantly easier. It's not like super duper easy, but it's easier than the South course. And I would imagine if you're playing DraftKings Showdown, Rick, only use people from the North course if you're going to go to that avenue one of the first 2 days.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe assumption. They've tried to make the North course harder. I mean, this place is kind of in my backyard. They've tried to make the North course a little bit more difficult, but it's still not nearly up to the standards of, what we're going to see from the South course, especially next year at the U.S. Open. We're going to get the South course in prime monster teeth conditions. So yeah, I would definitely be leaning on those north guys for the first 2 rounds.
Well, I haven't looked at. Maybe I should look up with the wind. I try not to look too far in advance because then like it gets skewed in my head, and if it changes, then I'm like, well, I don't want to have to go back and like redo everything. That sounds like a terrible idea. But we have seen wind play an extreme factor at this tournament every 4 or 5 or so years. Like when Snedeker won in 2016, it was a mess on the weekend.
He was like the only guy under par on Sunday or something. He like was 1 under. The wind's kicks, gets like 40 miles an hour sideways, and the entire field goes out and shoots an 80, and he's hoisting the trophy on Sunday. But you're right. This is literally right on the coast, literally right on the cliffs. The big defense is, rough, it's length, and then if that wind kicks up, this thing gets really scorching hard. But you're right. I think it can change all the time. I'm not looking until Wednesday or so at the earliest.
Well, the big thing with Snedeker is he did shoot the under par round. It's one of the best rounds adjusted. What do they call it? Strokes gained differential. Isn't that a stat? Like what your score is compared to what the scores of the day were. I think it's like top 10 all time of any round. But he finished on Saturday, but most of the field had to like stop and go out on Monday. So everyone was just getting ravaged. He went out like the earliest you could go, fired under par, and then just like sat in the clubhouse and won the tournament for like 30 hours.
Yeah, highly encouraged. Go check out the video of that. Guys are in the full rain suits, like backwards caps. Billy Horschel has no idea what's going on. It's an unbelievable scene, especially from a place that we usually see absolutely pristine weather.
So I did see a few clips of the rough, and it looks like it's been grown up already, at least compared to last year. That seemed to be the big thing with last year, that the rough was down a little bit, and Rose got to minus 21, because usually you get punished for missing the fairways, and that's where all the bogeys come from. And this is both of these courses, it's extremely difficult to hit the fairways. It's like 51%.
Yeah, and I also saw that it seemed like it was thick again. It was grown back out. Yeah, usually it's a 1-shot penalty essentially if you are in the rough, because you either have to hack one back out or you're just trying to gouge one to the middle of the green. It's very, very difficult to not only hit the fairways. When you miss them, you're in big trouble. So I don't think we're going to get to 21 under par again this week. I think we're going to be probably in the 15 to 16 range, because the additions, the upgrades, the renovations to the North Course to make it a smidge harder. And then, I don't think that Torrey wants 21 under par being the winning score here.
I just went and looked at the wind. It looks like there's no wind all week. So that's always, that at least makes it fun and fair.
Yeah, that will actually be that will not be beneficial for the windsurfers. You'll see the windsurfers off the 12th tee on the South Course. They're riding off the coast. If there's no wind, they'll be struggling with that, but good for everybody else.
So overall, what did you find were the stats that correlated the best here? I found where this is going to be such a daunting track. It's not to say that short hitters can't play well here, but I feel like bombers do have a bit of an advantage.
Yep. My model shows driving distance, driving accuracy. Driving distance is usually a pretty key correlator in a lot of places. There's only a handful that it's not. Driving accuracy, much higher than the normal PGA Tour course here. It's probably in the top 25% in terms of all the other 49 courses on the PGA Tour. But the one that actually surprised me was strokes gained putting, Pat. So the way that I do this is, I look at the guy, each golfer's year-long stats, and then compare to where they had success throughout that year. So what this means is guys who putt well, guys who ended the year as leaders in strokes gained putting, had success year over year at Torrey Pines, which is not like strokes gained putting is usually one of the lowest correlators. I think maybe this week, because Torrey is so tricky, the greens are like putting on glass, and despite knowing that everything goes to the water, it's very, very deceptive out there. And I'm wondering if a little bit of experience and actually being an overall solid putter is what's driving these stats up for me.
Outside of John Rahm and Scott Stallings, 9 of the past 11 winners had previously posted a top 10 at this event. So that theory and those results would somewhat correlate to what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's why I have a little bit of concern for some of the younger guys this week. I don't want to liken this to Augusta, where you always hear, oh, you've got to learn the greens, you've got to learn the course. It's why Davis Love III always, can always have success no matter how old he is. But I do think there is some component of that for this week, where these young guys not playing a lot of tournament rounds here in tournament conditions might struggle the first couple loops around.
I guess the only one to really throw that out is Rahm, who just showed up and won in his first start ever here 3 years
He
ago.
scorched it.
Yeah. And he won with a
Rahm is also
and it was a
unworldly.
ridiculous eagle on 18 to basically beat the field.
Right.
But either way, like when I think about players that should play well at Torrey Pines, he, like, besides Tiger, but no one is Tiger. But Rahm's skill set is what you want to have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at the top of, the DK salaries or the top of the field here, like, no one has been immune to missing multiple cuts in a row. I mean, Fowler's missed 3 in a row during a stretch. Hideki, Xander, Tiger, like, everyone has got multiple missed cuts for, like, this course bites you back. You can make big numbers out there. It's not just one of these things where we see Charles Howe III make 10 or 12 straight cuts in a row like we saw him do at Sony or at the American Express, right? This course will jump up and get you from time.
So looking back on it, and I'm glad you hit on that, because usually I try to go and find past 5 years who's made the cut at least every single time in a minimum of 3 starts. And it's in my column up on DKPlaybook.com right now. But I have, in a minimum of the 5-year span, the last 5 years, in a minimum of 3 starts, Finau, Woodland, Snedeker, Rahm, Johnny, who's back in the field, Robert Streb, CT Pan, and Bo Hostler have not missed a cut in the past 5 years.
That's it. And now how does that usually compare? There's usually more guys than that, right? I feel like we talk about more guys than that. That's a pretty small number for this week.
It is. And even looking at it, besides Finau and Woodland, they have sort of the prototypical skill sets that you would want. We have Pan, Hostler, and Snedeker, all really good putters. And then Rahm, you can throw into the first group, is just sort of a class player. The one that really sticks out is Robert Streb. It's like, what's going on with him? Why is he so good here?
Yeah. He's got like 3 tournaments every year where he has really great course history. It's like Greenbrier here and somewhere else. I don't know. He must just be all about the feels. And when he shows up somewhere, he's got the good vibes going and he can keep it going. But it's very strange to see his name on that list.
Well, let's jump into the most expensive players on the leaderboard, because when I was going through this and trying to reconfigure who I want to have in my lineups, I had a much easier time $8,000 and below than $8,000 and above. So you're going to have to help me out here trying to pick and choose between the really good guys. So the most expensive player in the field is Rory McIlroy, making his PGA Tour 2020 debut. He is $11,600. Rahm is second, $11,300. Then Tiger, defending champion Justin Rose, and Xander Schauffele are all in the $10,000 range. First of all, who do you think is the play of these 5? And how do you think ownership shakes out here? Because I can never get a good grasp on Tiger ownership. Like, is this a week where he's going to be super highly owned, being a 7-time event winner, 8-time course winner? Or it's like, well, Tiger doesn't really hit it all that far anymore. Let's take a pass on him.
I think more of the former than the latter. I think Tiger's ownership is always a bit inflated, but then you get him somewhere like this or at Bay Hill, or when we get to Augusta later in the year, Tiger's ownership probably going to be pretty big numbers. So I think you get an even extra inflated portion of it. I don't know what percentage of, DraftKings users are looking at it and diving into a much deeper, like, oh, this is the longest course, you need to be long. And I don't remember if Tiger hits the ball that long anymore, right? I might still have visions of 2000 Tiger, who's just lapping the field now that he's won 3 times in 12 months. So yeah, this is a really difficult area for me. I think, objectively, Rory McIlroy is the guy here, right? But he's going to cost you the most money. He's coming off of the win at the WGC HSBC, played awesome at the DP World Tour, which is the Race to Dubai Championship on the European side. And we haven't seen him much here, only once, but it was a top 5 finish last year. Like, I guess if you're willing to go up and pay for someone, it has to be Rory, but like, I don't know. I think between Tiger, John Rahm, I mean, Justin Rose is probably the overlooked guy in this situation, right?
So per fantasynational.com, I'm looking at the ownership projections. And again, we're speaking on a Tuesday, so a lot of this can change once a lot of the users who use Fantasy National consume all of the different media and all of the different podcasts, and then they start making their own decisions on it. But so far, Rahm and Rory by far the 2 highest owned, Xander third, and Rose and Tiger tied around like 12%.
Wow, man, I'd really love a 12% Justin Rose, to be quite frank. I mean,
but why not Tiger?
I guess because I think there's a couple of things. I mean, looking at course history, outside of the 7 wins, right? More recently, Tiger has a couple of top 25s around here. And Justin Rose, obviously, your defending champion. He's played awesome since. He's got, I think, one or two other top 10s along with that. And I just have a Thursday lock that Tiger number doesn't stay at 12%, and Justin Rose's number stays, like, that's more likely to stay there.
So the one case I think you can make for Tiger in this field over the past 50 rounds, he's 91st in driving distance gain. Not great, but he's top 10 in driving accuracy over that same span. So that would help mitigate the factors. And one of the big things that I wanted to look at was scoring on longer par fours, the 450 to 500 range, and just long proximity. So 175 to 200, 200 plus in terms of approaches. And basically Tiger and Ricky are the two best guys in the field from long distance irons.
Wow, Ricky, you can probably get Ricky at a pretty good number this week, especially with his course history. But yeah, I mean, the above 10K guys, there is a case to be made for almost every single one of them. I don't know, as you start building lineups, if it's easier to construct a lineup that you can stomach if you start with Tiger compared to starting with Rahm or Rory. Probably not at that point in the week for me yet to start making those decisions, but you get, like, Rose is cheaper. I don't know. There's something saying to me that Tiger does not end at 12%.
It's the 12%, and then we all have the worry that, and it didn't make a difference, like, that he had played the BMW, he was terrible. Then he comes back to the Zozo in Japan and wins. And then he's top 5 at the Hero, his tournament, with like 16 people in it. But still, those are very good players going forward. So I don't know how the time off either benefits or hurts him at this point. Like, it seems like it's an okay thing as long as he's periodically playing. But if you get him in like back-to-back weeks, that's never a good thing.
You know, the thing that also concerns me a little bit, and I hate the narrative stuff, but like, if he has like a early tee time out here, like, it's going to be 45 degrees before the sun comes up, and guys with bad backs who have trouble loosening up, that worries me a little bit. So like, it's obviously going to get and be nice during the day, but those early tee times, man, when the sun hasn't risen, it can be a little tough for somebody like a Tiger Woods or a Jason Day to get loose. And that worries me.
Maybe that's what you got to do. You got to stack the bad back guys. We'll throw Graham Dillette in there too, and we'll be on our way.
Yeah, or I just like to get him down. Get me somewhere hot and humid with Tiger and let him just, like, he'll have a sweat brewing before he even gets to the putting green. Like, that's when I want my Tiger exposure.
Is it actually going to be that cold? You said 40s. What's that in like real degrees?
Yeah, I mean, like at night. I have no idea about Celsius, but like, yeah, I mean, I'm an hour away. Like, when you go out and walk the dog at night or in the morning, you can see your breath. It warms up throughout the day. It'll probably be 75 degrees. But yeah, like, I mean, chilly for us guys, right? Us guys who are over here on the West Coast, always enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah, when you're trying to windsurf all year round, then yeah, it's a bit of a problem. For the rest of us, that sounds great.
Yeah, I don't know what it is in Celsius. My best guess is like minus 10,000. I have literally no idea how the conversion works.
Oh, it's 7 degrees? You think 7 degrees is cold? Give your fucking head a shake, Rick. Come on.
It sounds terrible. It's
like minus 13 here. Oh
my God.
It's not great. But when they're so I think that people are going to avoid Tiger this week. That's probably the point that I'm going to circle back around to. I think that people want to play him, but they'll just look around him and go with all these other guys. And I'm a victim of doing this with Tiger so much. I'm thinking about just kind of taking the Nestea plunge on Tiger Woods.
Oh, man, I mean, it's certainly compelling. What about Xander, which is like the cheapest of these guys? Class golfer who has a bunch of really great results coming in. Is it just one of these situations where he's back in his hometown, he's at La Jolla where he grew up, and now he's got to deal with everybody's kind of BS all week and from his family and friends, and that's why he doesn't play well here?
So that was the thing that I pointed out to Feinberg on yesterday's show, that I've just found players playing at their home course, generally speaking, tend to perform just significantly worse than you would think they would because of these different commitments. I think it's a lot that has to do with Ricky playing poorly at this course ever since he became like the face of Farmers, is that he has so many media obligations throughout the week that it just kind of throws you off. And when you have friends and family looking for tickets the entire week, the other big thing, and I don't know, is this Xander's home course or is it a course he's played like a ton in his life?
I don't think it's the course he plays out of. He plays out of San Bernardino Valley, I believe. But I think he went to Torrey Pines High School. He's from La Jolla. I would just assume this is not only a place that he has played a bunch, as it's also a public course, like anybody can get on this thing, but also the fact that, like, he's familiar with the Kikuyu grass and the way things are going to react in this Southern California. This is a type of golf course he's probably seen a million times.
So my biggest thing when it comes down to this, and I could just be talking out of my ass with this, but something that I've just kind of observed over time is that when you get players that are very familiar with the course, that's not Augusta, because when it's Augusta, when you play Augusta, even in these practice rounds, it's basically set up like Augusta is set up. It's the right lengths. There's no rough, so what are they really going to do? The problem with a lot of these venues is when you play it as a home course or you play it in a non-tournament setup, it's way easier. And when they set it up for tournaments, the rough is longer, the tees are a bit different. That stuff changes, and you have the stuff in the back of your mind of how it is supposed to be. Like Ryan Palmer at Colonial is always the one to really go look at. Like that's like his course. He always plays there. He loves it so much. He has like the course record or whatever it might be in terms of like the clubhouse. But when it's tournament style, it's longer, it's tighter. Everything is just a little bit off, and it causes some players to struggle. Now, Xander did come T25 last year, so maybe he's over that now. But it does worry me a little bit.
I do think there is something to that, because I think it was Palmer himself who was like, yeah, when it's tournament week, it's actually a little bit jarring because they've got all the stands set up and it just doesn't look the way that I normally expect it to look. So that might be an individual by individual basis, but I don't think that's a bad take.
But it's even something like, oh, I know on hole 8 I can miss left. Because, like, if I want to miss left, then I have my shot into even a hole 9, let's say, because there might be grandstands there. But now that there's a tournament, there's grandstands over there, and I can't miss left. Like, now I'm OB kind of thing.
Yeah, I certainly think, and we have at least enough anecdotal evidence, right? Like, I feel like when there's always these stories, oh, so-and-so is going back to their home course, I feel like it ends badly more often than it ends well.
So the big thing with the Xander decision this week is if we drop into the 9K range, Hideki is sitting right there at 9.9, $200 less. Then it's Fowler, Woodland, Finau, Reed, Sungjae, and Jason Day at $9,000. I'd rather play Hideki over Xander.
I kind of like a lot of these guys in this range. Yeah, I mean, these are still class golfers. So I think you and Feinberg had covered this, where it's kind of like there's studs, right? I mean, studs tend to win this golf tournament, at least in recent memory. And I think there's only, I don't know, a handful of them, 10, 12 that have a lot of win equity in this golf tournament. And we're starting to get to the bottom of that range. Like, if you can pile in 2 of these guys, like, I don't know how common this is going to be. I assume pretty common. Like, what about starting your lineup just like Woodland, Finau, and going from there?
You could do Woodland, Finau. You could do Hideki, Woodland, Finau if you wanted to, because I do think there's enough value opened up at the bottom that's viable, at least from a 6-6 perspective. And I would just, like, honestly, if I'm just going to gamble on one of these lower end guys, just gamble on bombers. That's probably the best way to go about it. But just, I'm with you. I like all of these guys sort of independently, but trying to figure out the right mix of them, I think, is going to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, even someone like we talk about kind of the perception of recent finishes, and Fowler, who goes out and has the 36-hole lead last week and then fades on the weekend, is a much different story than someone who, if he would have started out slow and charged up the leaderboard to finish in a tie for 10th. But Ricky's had not a lot of real good success around Torrey Pines. I still think he's obviously a class player, and you'd be banking on kind of his long-term form, but a really interesting leverage spot. I think it's a little bit too risky for my blood, but yeah, there's you can make a case for almost every single one of these guys in this range.
So the 2 players currently projected the lowest of the top 10 overall, Day and Fowler, around 6% and 7% each. The one case I'll make for Ricky is that this is usually his opening tournament every single year. He might play Tournament of Champions, but that depends on if he wins the year before, and that's hit or miss. But he's usually over at the Abu Dhabi tournament from last week, and then he flies over and plays in the Farmers, generally plays poorly, and then goes on to Phoenix and is awesome every single year. So maybe now that he just played the week before at the Amex, that all of a sudden that he's back in the flow of things. There's not a massive time difference that he has to deal with. He still has those sponsor obligations, but maybe he's able to plan that out a little bit easier. I don't know, but it seems like stuff is setting up better for him this time around. If he is going to be one of the lower owned guys, it seems like he's a play.
Yeah, and when you compare him against Jason Day, who is somebody that I really couldn't touch a lot of times this year, and now just trying to pay for those 2 wins in the last 5 years, like scares the crap out of me from a guy who I think he's got like one top 10 since the players last year. It's just been such a bad run for Jason Day. And I know that people are going to look at the past champions. They're going to say, okay, he's $9,000. I know his name. Like, I know he's one of the lower owned guys, but I still feel like whatever his number comes in at is too high for me.
I bet Jason Day at 40 to 1. I think that's probably the better move than playing him at 9,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, especially because I saw him. Books were all over the place on that number. I saw him at like 25. I saw him at 40. Yeah, I think I'd much rather have just a bullet of a bet than putting him in my core, playing him in my lineups, and hoping for the best.
And I think it depends on how many lineups you end up playing this week. If I was like in my tournament, the 3-entry max, although I am so bad at picking my lineups in that every week that I just kind of just arbitrarily pick them, that I'll probably end up with like 3 teams with Jason Day in it. But if you start expanding your lineups to 20, if you play in a 20 max, or if you play in a 30 max, like having 2 or 3 lineups with Jason Day is going to get you like triple the field. And if we're talking about win equity, he is one of the win equity guys clearly in this field. And he's come off of no playing and won this tournament before. I have no idea if he's going to be good or not. It's a lot of the same logic that I put on to Francesco Molinari last week. Like, he's 40 to 1. Like, what are we doing here? Like, he's the best or second best player in this field. Yes, he hasn't played, but if he can catch lightning in a bottle, all of a sudden you have a guy you're like, why the hell was he 40 to 1? I feel the same way about Day. Like, if he had just played in the President's Cup and even played poorly, he'd be 20 to 1.
That's probably true. Yeah, the withdrawal scares everybody, right? It scares everybody from, oh, what is this going to be? Is he going to hit 3 shots on Thursday and go and pack the bags? Like, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and I do think there is definitely something to just grabbing long-term form. Elite. I mean, this is elite course history next to like Tiger. I mean, this is the best you could ask for. So I don't hate it at 40 to 1. Probably won't make it into my DraftKings player pool.
So I'll probably end up going 3 of 20 lineups with Jason Day. That's where I'm going to figure out where my exposure is going to be, and somehow I'll end up with more than that. And I'll be like, what the hell am I doing? Why? I said I wasn't going to do this. I told people not to do this, but I ended up doing it like an idiot. But I just do think that where the ownership is coming in so low, that he's a nice pair with with Woodland or Finau or Hideki, who are going to be incredibly popular.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Like, if you start your lineup with one of those huge guys that you know is going to be in everybody's lineup, like a Gary Woodland, and you want to just have a different build than everybody else, a Fowler, a Day, that is probably accomplishing the goal, and then you can go back to anybody else you want because you're going to be probably pretty unique after that.
Reed and Sung Jae are just sitting there. I don't know what to do with them.
Man, really tough. I am long term just like Sung Jae guy. I think he's so good. He makes a lot of birdies. He can he just is in every tournament. He can roll the ball. I think Reed is just a much streakier option, right? We've seen him catch fire for 6 weeks in a row. We've seen him be terrible for 6 weeks in a row. So they're actually, results wise, I bet you there's some, like if you look at like average finish or something like that, they're probably pretty close, but they do it in completely different ways that depending on what you're looking for to round out your lineup, if you need a guy who's more solid, or if Reed is like, hey, this is my flyer who can go out and win this thing. I understand that's how I'm putting him into my lineup. I'll take Patrick Reed. You have a little bit of both here.
I think Day, like Reed, is a better bet to win than a DraftKings play.
Day, like Reed, is a better bet to win than a DraftKings play. I could get behind that. Yeah, okay, because he certainly has win equity, right? And he has win equity above whatever his number is at the moment, which is, I don't even know what he is right now.
I think he's down to 28 to 1. You can probably catch him at a 30. And I don't think that he's going to win, so I'm not going to bet him to win. He doesn't hit the ball far enough. He's bad at long approaches. But like you mentioned, if he just gets hot, then Patrick Reed is in fuego and it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been really good outside of, he gained like 1 million strokes putting at Tournament of Champions, and then he missed the cut at Sony, but he was still like plus tee to green at the Sony Open. Yeah, I think he's fine. I'm not running to the book to bet him. I'm not sprinting to my computer to enter him into all my DraftKings lineups, but he is someone that I'm like, hey, this is upside. This is certainly a GPP guy that if he snaps off, he can win me this thing.
If you sort on Fantasy National by courses only over 7,400 yards, which this is because it's almost 77, that I did it with Jason Day over the past 50 rounds, and he had rated out number 47 in the field in the key stats that I was looking at. If you do it for courses over 7,400 yards, he's 4th.
Wow. That's kind of surprising. How many courses are over 7,400 yards? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Probably.
I'm gonna pull up his 50 rounds at courses over 7,400 yards, and let's see what they are. The BMW, the PGA Championship, Wells Fargo, the Masters, Farmers, Tournament of Champions, Open Championship, U.S. Open, Wells Fargo, the Masters, Arnold Palmer Invitational, Farmers, PGA Championship, Masters, API, Farmers, TOC, Northern Trust. The Zurich, surprisingly, is, although that's not in the rotation anymore as a singular event. But it seems like he does, like, those are the tournaments he plays the best at. So maybe he just long courses play Jason Day.
And they're legit events, man. Like those are tough fields. Those are big prizes, and they're difficult courses. Yeah, you're warming me up a little bit.
So if you sort it out past 50 rounds, just with that distinction and the key stats that I put in, including driving distance, ball striking around the green, all that stuff. Number 1 in the field is Justin Rose. Number 2 is Ricky Fowler. Then it's Lucas Glover, Jason Day, Rory, Rahm, Tiger, Luke List, Tony Finau, Molinari, Reed, Woodland, Xander, Palmer, Hideki, and your guy, the Gooch.
Love the Gooch. Firing irons, played well here last year. We can get to him a little bit later, but those are all the names that you would kind of expect sans Lucas Glover and Luke List, like jamming their name into that leaderboard. But a lot of big names. I like to hear that Justin Rose leads it.
Do you feel like Justin Rose is going to be the odd, like I said, it's probably going to be Tiger, but the projected ownership had him and Tiger around the same. And like, that was kind of your initial gut reaction, is that people are just going to overlook him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're still human, right? And everyone who has to make that decision, whether they've got enough money to afford both of them, they have to make the decision between Tiger and Justin Rose. It's just so easy to click Tiger's name, especially knowing the course history. Justin Rose has been playing on, he was in like the Asian tour last week in Singapore, I believe. Like, we just haven't seen a whole bunch of him. It's easy to forget about him. He doesn't do anything really, really sexy. Like, I just think it's naturally human for us to lean and click Tiger's name much more often than we're clicking Justin Rose's name.
$8,000 range this week. It kicks off with Morikawa, who I believe has made every cut on the PGA Tour, which is kind of crazy. He's 89. Yep. Scotty Scheffler, a better skill set for this layout, cheaper than he was last week, $8,800 coming off a T2. Cam Smith coming off a win. Neiman, Spieth, Snedeker, Mark Leishman, Matthew Wolff. Who else we got here? Horschel and Ryan Palmer. That's the end of your $8,000 range. I like Wolff, and I am undecided between the rest of them. I know people are really going to like Ryan Palmer this week.
I saw that. A lot of buzz on Ryan Palmer. He's been pretty good recently. I know that he's got a couple of good finishes here. That to me is going to start to feel like bad chalk at some point. Like, I'm not loving the Ryan Palmer situation. I also like Wolff. So I think what you get from him is you're going to have super volatile results from Matt Wolff, which is kind of what we saw last week. He was playing great, fades and ends up in 61st, but the tee shot, so critical here at Torrey Pines, and Matt Wolff has the skill set to be able to tame the most difficult part about Torrey Pines, which kind of excites me, right? He can kind of fight fire with fire, so he's someone that catches my attention in a big way.
He falls into the Rahm bucket for me as someone who could come to this course and potentially win. And while he's 70-1 and his DraftKings price is down right now, that when we look back at it next year and he's like a top 15 guy in the world, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Quality players do always win here. We just didn't treat him that way at the time.
Yeah, we just didn't know it, but he, over the next 12 months, he absolutely solidifies himself. Yeah, I think that's certainly an option. Now, there's only probably one or two other guys I'd like to play in this range. I think Cam Smith at 87 is pretty intriguing, right below the darlings, Colin Morikawa and Scotty Scheffler, who I'm worried about with their lack of course history. But Cam Smith here, coming off the win, but it was 2 weeks ago. So he's had a little time to get back on track, doesn't have to do all the media and then jump right back into a tournament. And 3 straight cuts made here, including a 9th place last year. He's someone that I think is pretty sneaky. He's probably playing the best he's played in his entire career right now.
He's another one of those guys that plays long courses really well, too. It was Neiman who was drawing a lot of my interest. I think he won like back-to-back years, the U.S. juniors at this course. So at least he's familiar with it in a sense. And theoretically, he has sort of the ball striking distance plus accuracy that you would want off the tee here. But I don't, how would you rate out Neiman long-term? Like, of all the guys who can make the leap and be top 10 players in the world, like, do you think that long-term skill-wise Neiman is better than Morikawa? Because I don't know if he is.
I don't think he's better than Morikawa, but that's not a knock to Neiman, because Morikawa, I think, is really that good. Like, the kid has 0 holes in his game. Neiman is kind of just like his range of outcomes is so much wider. He's a great ball striker. He can fire darts, but he gets really loose at times. I followed him around Shriners for a while, and he hit shots that I wasn't seeing other pros hit, like, in a bad way. So he's going to figure it out. He's still very, very young. I don't even think he can legally drink in the United States if he goes and wins the tournament this week. So I do have a lot of high hopes for him, but comparing him to Morikawa, that's a tough one because Colin's so good.
All right. Well, do you think that Wolf or Neiman is going to be the better long-term player? Because I think Wolf is.
Yeah, I think Wolf is too. I mean, it's again, these guys might be, to your point, like top 15 players in the world. So if Neiman is top 25 and he's like what Ricky Fowler is, like, that'd be great. But Matt Wolf legit upside is like Dustin Johnson, where he just goes out and he scorches off the tee. It takes him 5 or 6 years to figure out the wedges. He starts rolling putts in, and all of a sudden he's raising major championships. Like, I think that is the ceiling for Matt Wolf, and I don't know, Neiman's ceiling is probably not that high.
One of the key things that I did find as it pertained to the top 10 finishers at this event was they all gain strokes around the green. Like, you're going to miss greens here. You're going to have to scramble. And that can go hand in hand with, scrambling is a product of putting as well, if you're looking at overall scrambling percentage. So looking at around the green can lead you in a better direction sometimes. Who leaves themselves the short putts when they're around green side. So Wolf is actually like okay at it. Palmer is like disastrously bad, but apparently he's good here. And sometimes people have figured out green complexes like Bubba at Riviera. Like, if you have him chipping, he's going to stick it close. But the two guys in the range that are really good at these two sorts of things are Spieth and Snedeker. Snedeker's won twice here, and I saw Spieth on Twitter make a 55-foot putt. So, he's making those every time this week.
He's trolling everyone now. Like, he legit, like, for that to get out on Twitter, and I think it was like one-handed or something, for him to start rolling stuff in like that is just like everyone's getting all fired up. But yeah, I think there's a fine line here, right? I obviously want guys who can get up and down because there are going to be plenty of holes where par is a good score. I think the 12th on the South course was like the second hardest hole last year on out of every hole on tour. So there's a lot of difficult holes out here. So getting up and down for par is going to come in handy, but it doesn't matter if you're getting up and down for bogey. If you're missing fairways, you're missing greens constantly. Like, I'm just so worried about Jordan Spieth. From a guy who I would much prefer to be early on everyone, I will be late on Spieth.
Should we be going to Mark Leishman? Leishman gained over 10 strokes ball striking at the Sony, has an excellent track record at this course, and you're getting him for super cheap.
I saw that because his name came up because he was like the highest owned in the one and done pool last year. And I was like, why was he the highest owned one and done player? And I went back and looked, and yeah, it was really good course history. I mean, I'm never a big Leishman fan, but what we have seen from him is he can compete on difficult golf courses. This one certainly included in that. And he's skinny now, right? Like, this is a whole new Mark Leishman, trying to get everything going, and he's playing well.
Yeah, skinny leash. The ball striking has been really good. Like, the 28th at Sony is not a reflection of how well he played. So it's strange. Wolf and Leishman are going to be my guys from the $8,000 range, which does open up the top to me a lot more in making them either my second and third if I use like a Rory, or even third and fourth, and still have some value at the bottom if I do that balanced build.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a lot of flexibility, and from both a salary standpoint and also from like a unique build standpoint, right? Like, if you start with those two guys, you can literally go anywhere you want and probably not worry about how it pans out in terms of duped lineups or anything.
So 7K guys this week. It's funny. I mentioned Palmer is going to be one of the highest owned players. He could push 20%. A guy right below him at $7,900, Lonto Griffin, also projects to be one of the highest owned players on this slate. Do you know what I have Molinari's ownership projected at right now?
Oh God. Sub 3%.
Yes, 2.4%.
What is it? 2.4?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's been really bad. He's been really, really bad. And he was the PGA Tour. He was on PGA Tour live coverage. Like, he played brutally. Like, he was missing the wrong side of every single green. He didn't make a single putt all week. And yeah, he just hasn't been good.
So here's my one thing with Molinari. And maybe I was the week early on him trying to bet him, and maybe I should go back to betting him here. He's not a skill fit for this course, although he does tend to play a bit of the longer courses well when he's hitting a lot of fairways, which is a bit out of his repertoire at the moment. But last year, he showed up to the Tournament of Champions, first event of the year, basically to collect a paycheck and go to Hawaii. You know, negative everywhere, almost came dead last. Next time we see him is like 7 weeks later at WGC Mexico. He comes 17th, but he's not very good at that event. And then he back at Arnold Palmer like the next week and wins. So it feels like there is a switch that he can hit. And it just, at that low ownership, I don't want to talk to myself into all low ownership guys because they're low ownership guys, but I mean, I know Lonto's been significantly better than Molinari, but fun fact, Molinari is a better player.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I do think there is something to like the second week in a row that you play, especially for Molinari, who we know, could have been drinking wine for the last 6 weeks and hasn't touched his clubs, that type of situation, getting him going. And we've seen it. Like, he's one of the few guys that has backed up wins with like more wins and more top 3 finishes. Like, once he gets going, it's going to go in a big way. So I don't mind it. I'm not in love. I mean, Lonzo to me is probably the guy. I'm a little upset if his ownership is going to come in pretty high, because from a value standpoint, he's like one of the best. Like, the last like 9 times he's been under $8,000, he's returned you 10 times value in like 8 of them. He's just a machine. He's always up there. He can make a lot of birdies. He can make an eagle or two. And he keeps you in play. But I was hoping his ownership would not be that high at 7,900, but it sounds like it might be.
If you want to go with that chalky build at the top, whether it be Hideki Woodland, Hideki Finau as your starting point, a Molinari is a good way to take whoever else you want if you throw him in too. But I think that he's like a 2 of 20 type guy. If you're playing 10 lineups, just avoid him completely. But he is a way to gain some leverage on the field. My actual preferred guys in the $7,000 range, I like Ben Ann at $7,700 because I'm a sucker. I like Bubba Watson at $7,500 as the gamble. Sam Burns at $7,100 and Harris English at $7,400 would be my 4 in this range. Maybe Gooch too.
Okay. Yeah, I actually like Benyon. I mean, he's a great tee to green player. The fact that he kind of burned everybody, especially after getting their hopes up, starting like 5 under after the first 5 holes last week. That's the stuff that actually kind of gets me excited. Like, because I know everybody's going to avoid him. But yeah, I'm kind of in a situation where I'm probably going towards the bottom of this range a little bit. Someone like a Joel Damon at 7,400 who withdrew from the American Express, but he withdrew beforehand. We have literally no idea why. These guys don't have to disclose why they're not playing, but a 12th place at the Sony Open the week before. He already has a couple other top 10s in the early part of the swing season, and he's played well here, or at least last year, a 9th place finish. He's someone that I think at least piques my interest in the 7s.
Glover and Watney were the 2 I was trying to figure out. I threw out that Lucas Glover plays really well at long courses, but tee to green, he's really good. Even around the greens, he's really good on long par 3s, which they all are, and his long irons are really good too. It's just, I don't know how, and maybe this is a good thing that he played last week. He's back into the swing of things, and he can go tackle this course. But I thought about him. Burns just bombs it. And usually you only want to play him on Bermuda, so that worries me a little bit. So I might switch off Burns into Glover or potentially Watney, who's played well at this tournament basically over the past 15 years. And the other guy is Cam Davis. Cam Davis at $7,000, I'm in. Like, he's going to be a core player for me this week.
God, Cam Davis, the computer would be very proud of you for that. You know that.
The computer knew something with Cam Davis, man.
It's amazing. Like it's actually quite awesome. I don't have a problem with any of that. I mean, I really like Sam Burns. I had a top 5 on him last week. He finished sixth at 80-1, but no, he's a really good skill set for here because he's just gonna bomb it out. He's gonna chop off a significant portion of this course. But yeah, I'm probably going back to like Gooch, man. We mentioned him very quickly earlier. The fact that he just hits his irons so well. He made a little bit of a run on Sunday, which is always good to see the week before. And then he comes in here off of a third place finish. And he's a guy who's made 2 cuts in the only 2 times that we've ever seen him play here. So I don't necessarily need a third place finish from Gooch again, but like give me a T12 and make some birdies along the way.
Are we just completely overlooking Keegan Bradley? Like,
okay, so
shouldn't we take him seriously?
Yeah. So Keegan is the king of like total driving, right? Which is your rank in distance, your rank in accuracy, add them up. Keegan is always up there, which is literally the skill set that you would like to apply to Torrey Pines. And we've seen it come out of success, right? A 4th, a 5th, 2 and 3 years ago, a 35th place finish last year. So like that skill set actually translating, which is this, like, it's the same thing for Woodland. Woodland has the skill set that you would expect to fit Torrey, and he's shown it in results. And Keegan has at least the off the tee game that you would expect to translate to Torrey, and those results have shown as well.
That's what I like about Cam Davis. I know the accuracy isn't really a big thing, but he's made the cut in both appearances like Gooch at this course. And this does seem to be the best he's ever been playing, like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's on the big tour and he's made a couple cuts and he's playing well, yeah, there's no argument that this is the best he's ever played. There is also Pat Perez at 7,000 who putts well, hits a lot of fairways, and he's played well here in the past. So he had, let me see if I can pull this up, because he had that one year in 2018 where I don't know if it was a wrist or something happened where he had an injury, but the year before that he had a 4th place finish here at Torrey. I think he can make a lot of birdies in bunches. He's someone that intrigues me for only 7,000 flat.
I could see that. I would prefer Cam Davis, and one of my favorite plays of the week is at 6,900. I think that Carlos Ortiz sets up really well for this course.
Ooh, okay. Let's talk about that. So he's been playing well. What about Carlos Ortiz is most enticing?
I think that he has the right distance for this course. He's not like super long, but he's not super short either. He hits around an average amount of fairways. So I think you can piece that together a little bit. Really good short game, putting really well, but he scores on these long par 5s and long par 4s and long par 3s. So in this field over the past 50 rounds, he's 13th par 4 scoring, 450 to 500. He's also 11th par 3s from 200 to 225 yards. If the wind somehow does kick up, he is excellent in the wind, and he's top 20 around the green as well, so he can save himself, and the putter is working at the moment. And historically, over the past 2 years, the only putting surface where he has positive gain strokes per round is on POA. So at least at the South Course, he should be okay.
Yeah, I was actually going to say in this field, he's 2nd around the green this season in strokes gained around the green. He's gaining off the tees. He's longer than some of these other guys. He's averaging nearly 305 yards off the tee. That's not bad. He was not on my short, medium, or long list, but maybe because I wasn't looking hard enough. That's pretty good.
It does seem, I get that Lanto has been playing so well, but I think that Ortiz and Lanto are just they're bucket players to put close to each other, and now you get one guy for $1,000 cheaper.
Yeah, and I mean, really, Lanto wins at Houston. Carlos Ortiz finishes 4th. Carlos Ortiz had another, I think, top 5 or top 10 at Mayakoba. I mean, it's not like, yeah, Lanto's racked up a bunch of top 20s, but it's not that much better, especially for what you're describing. $1,000 difference in salary is a big deal. It gives you a lot of room.
And in 3 turns at Farmers, he's made the cut twice with an T11. That was in 2015 when he was coming off Web Player of the Year. But he seems to be getting back closer to that guy who everyone was super excited about as a rookie. Then he went through some struggles. But he does appear to be back. And when he's back, he goes out and puts up birdies.
Yeah, you've got me. I don't know if we'll make it into my core, but certainly going to be adding a lot more exposure to Carlos Ortiz than I was 5 minutes ago.
So other 6K guys that I'm looking at, I have a star next to Scott Stallings because he likes this course.
Yep.
That's not really good.
Yeah, he's won here,
but
right?
Yeah, he's won here. He won here, and then he lost in a playoff the next year.
Yeah, that's pretty good. My star here is actually Tom Hoagie, who's a pretty good ball striker. Approaches have been awesome to start this season, and he's got two really good finishes in a row: sixth at the Amex, 12th at the Sony, and he finished well here a couple of years ago, 12th in 2018. So he's got at least a little bit of experience, at least a little bit of success around here. And another one, like when we're talking about guys in the $6,800, $69 range, like to say he's playing the best we've ever seen him, like that's pretty exaggeratory, but it's probably true for a lot of these guys who have like back-to-back top tens.
Yeah, that is actually incredibly accurate. My problem with Hoagie is that it doesn't seem like he has any outs off the tee. Like he needs to be so good driving the ball, which is not his forte, that he can get himself into a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys down here that are gonna burn you. I think something like 55% of the field is under like $7,000 or something like that. There's just a huge chunk of guys that when I'm down here, yeah, I'm either looking. I don't know what you rely on more, is if it's course history, especially around a place like this, if it's recent form, or if it's just like a elite skill set in one spot. I kind of go back and forth on it all the time.
For this event in particular, when I ran all of the modeling and I went back, you can use the time machine feature on Fantasy National to go back and just load in the stats that we led up to last year and rerun what you put in, and then go back and look at it. So I did that for like the past 3 years and correlated it to what I'm seeing right now. And it does appear like the long-term stats at this course. I mean, that's why you see like bigger-ish names consistently win. So then you try to pick off the pieces of the guys who also pop up in like the past 100 rounds or past 2 years. In the key stats that you're looking for, and then it does tend to correlate a little bit better. Now, every year is going to be completely different and somewhat random. There's always going to be guys that pop up that you just don't see coming. But for me down here, like someone like Wyndham Clark has the right skill set for this course. Now, he could be last place, but for what he does well, it should fit Torrey Pines.
Yeah, a lot of these guys can be in last place. Here's one for you, and I never play this guy, but would you consider at all playing Chesson Hadley?
No, because I think that if things don't go perfectly for him, he can't get up and down.
Yeah, that's the issue, is even in this run of success where he's gained like, I don't know, 5 straight tournaments total, and this has been a pretty good run for him, the around the green game has been brutal. So if we do think that that's going to be important this week, I don't think you can roster him. But there was a gaining momentum for this guy last week and this week, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy by dismissing it.
Well, Feinberg has already stated that he's betting Chesson Hadley next week.
Oh, okay, I guess next week might be better, but like I will never invest in Chesson Hadley.
So here's the thing with Wyndham Clark. Over the past 50 rounds, he's kind of all over the map. He's not really good at long irons, and he doesn't hit a ton of fairways. Still, he is 12th in the field in driving distance gained. He is top 20 in that key par 4 range on the long par 4s. He's 16th around the green. He's 8th in putting. That's half of what you want.
Yeah, which is also like a quarter more than what you're going to get from anyone else in this range, right? Like it's usually so dreadful that if you can get half of what you want, that's probably pretty good.
And he was absolute trash at the Amex last week, but I don't feel like those 3 courses and these 2 courses have anything to do with each other.
They couldn't be more polar opposites in the fact that you're playing 3 courses last week, like anything can happen. But yeah, that's a birdie fest. That's a Corn Ferry Tour event where 30 under par, it's a race to 30 under par. This is much different. This is going to bite back. So yeah, almost guys that didn't play well last week might be a badge of honor around here.
Oh, Scott Stallings, top 15 in both of the key approach range, 175 plus. So I guess that's something worth to note. Varner rates out really well for me, but I just don't know if I can pull the trigger on him.
Yeah, I saw his name too, and I scrolled past it pretty quickly. Even if things go really well for him, I lack the confidence in kind of like him being able to pull it off. Quite frankly, the handful of times that we've seen him in big spots, I feel like he's folded more than anything. So it's one of those situations where you could look really good after 2 rounds and you could look up and he finished, T62.
Is there anyone else from down here that you would consider going to? Like total driving, my guy Zhang Zhang is pretty good.
I mean, I'm a kind of a sucker for Hank. I've been saying it Lebiota. I believe it's Lebiota, who is 6,300, 17th at the Amex, which is now his third top 30, I believe, in his last 5 starts. And he's played here once and made a cut. Left-handed player. He can make a lot of birdies. I don't mind it. Again, it's just mostly comparing against his peers, which are like Anirban Lahiri, Patton Kazire, Rob Oppenheim. Like, it's pretty ugly here.
So if I just sort by driving distance gain and we just want to go pure bomber, we just kind of glossed over Cameron Champ. He's $7,800. Let's not worry about him because we don't want to use Cameron Champ, correct?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
At $6,100, Ryan Brem is second in this field in driving distance, and Trey Mullinix is third. I didn't even know Trey Mullinix was on tour anymore, but he's played well at this event over the years.
Yeah, wow. I always confuse Molinax and Troy Merritt. Those are the two
not
guys.
the same guy.
I finally figured out. Yeah, and I finally figured out Sam Burns and Sam Ryder. So my next one to figure out is Molinax and Merritt, but I think I've got it. No, yeah, he has played well here, but yeah, I will not be investing in him.
That is, but if you do want, because a contrarian approach this week to lineup building is to jam in like Rory and Tiger or Rory and Rose. And then if that's the case, you might have to use one of these absolute duds down at the bottom. But if they're second in the field in driving distance, maybe that can go a long way into helping things like Brandon Hagee, Grayson, Sam Burns, JB Holmes, Johnny Vegas, Wyndham Clark, Keith Mitchell, Cam Davis, Finau, Phil Kokrak. That's the top 15 when it comes to driving distance.
Yeah.
Phil.
I saw Grayson and was like, I kind of gave it an eyebrow, but you're right. No, if you are here and you are, because you went and you took Rory and you took somebody else up there and you're trying, I mean, I played Ted Potter Jr. and Bill Hogue last year, or Bo Hogue last week, because I'm just like looking for something specific. So if that something specific is an elite skill set or one that's top 10 in this field in distance, or I don't know if you can get anybody who hits their irons this well down here, but like something like that, right? That's definitely the route I'd go. It's why I took Cam Champ in our season long thing, just because I'm like, let me ride this awesome one skill set 40 times and see what happens. So I do not disagree with that strategy of at least finding someone who's in the top end of some stat.
The guys that are inside the top 25 of ball striking, so driving plus approach from the bottom of the $6,000 area. One is Cameron Percy, who has missed 4 of his past 5 cuts, but doing okay on approach. Guy cannot putt. Mullinix is actually one of them. He's missed 5 consecutive cuts dating back to the John Deere. I don't know how he's in this tournament. I really don't. Like, has he been hurt? Has that been the thing? Well, it does say Trey Mullinix injury, so that's a thing.
That's actually a good question. I don't know where he's been. I have very limited rounds on Scott Harrington, and he's kind of just played a lot of I think I have 22 measured rounds on him. But tee to green, he's been awesome. He's gaining over a stroke per round in tee to green, and he's made at least a handful of cuts this season. He does benefit from being one of the guys who's played a lot of the measured events for this year, but he's only 6,400 again with Peter Malnati, Patrick Rogers, Steve Strick, like those types of guys.
So Mullinix injured himself back in May, and then he played out the rest of the summer. So he hadn't played since the Barbasol at the end of June last year. Came back last week in Bahamas and was T58 on the Corn Ferry Tour. So he does have a tournament under his belt and did make the cut in, that tournament's just a shit show. It's just wind everywhere and like, hold on.
Yeah, it was blowing sideways for a while because they were showing it on the Golf Channel. So yeah, there's probably not too much to glean one way or another from that event. But okay, good to hear that he's back and that there was a reason that he kind of disappeared off the face of the earth for a while.
So I think if you're gonna chance it with a min guy, he would be the min guy, because I'm looking at Dillette and I really want him to be good. The driving is back for Dillette, which is really nice, but the rest of the game hasn't caught up, and he's always generally pretty terrible around the greens.
Yeah, pure min. I played Will Gordon a couple of weeks ago, and he had a top 10 at the RSM. But yeah, it's pretty ugly down here. So you get someone like a Mark Anderson who gains strokes on approach. I don't know if there's anybody down here that gains strokes in like 2 of the 4 categories. You're basically looking at one for everybody. And then there's some really bad ones like where's my guy Martin Trainer, who is now, since that win that he had, he was losing like 3 shots per round total for a while. He's been so bad.
It's pretty good. 3 shots. You have to actively try to be that bad.
Yeah, 3.5. Three tee to green, 3.5 total in the negative. Like, it's actually atrocious.
All right, last guy, because we kind of glossed over him. Are you going to use Bubba?
Oh man, I generally don't use Bubba. I'm probably in the camp of Bubba's done, right? I mean, you might get him like Travelers, you might get me to consider it. Genesis, I suppose, but like no, I think there's better options than Bubba.
I just think that you can't. It seems to be one good year, one bad year, one good year, one bad year in rotation for Bubba Watson, and you just want to play him at courses where he's played well in the past, and he has won here.
I definitely agree with playing him at places that he's played well in the past, because that's like, I don't know how many PGA Tour wins he has, like 10, 11, 12, something like that. And I feel like 7 or 8 of them are from 3 spots. So I definitely agree with that, but I don't think it's the week for Bubba for me.
Again, he might fall into that Molinari, Day, and Reed camp of he is a better outright bet than DraftKings play.
Yeah. And if you want to be unique, like you're talking about, there's some really heavy chalk at spots. And if you plug in, like the Molinari one is probably my favorite one out of those guys, where I still think he has a lot of game left, and he's going to be 2.5%. Like, you plug him in, now you can go back to doing whatever else you wanted to do and be unique and have a guy who, goes out and finishes in a top 10. You're flying up to leaderboards.
All right. That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Rick Gehman, tell everyone what you have coming out this week and the myriad spots they can find your work.
Yeah. Wow. So at Rick Run Good on Twitter, I'll tweet everything. At DFSOnDemand.com is my website for tools and all that good stuff. Podcasts coming out, including The First Cut, which is CBS Sports podcast. We've got some guys down at the merchandise show. Mark Immelman, who's one of our colleagues over at CBS Sports, he's going to be inside the ropes on the call at Torrey this week. So hoping to get some really good insight there. Just a lot going on. Follow me on Twitter and I'll blast it all out.
Is Mark Immelman related to Trevor Immelman?
It's his brother. Yeah. So
is it actually his brother? Or are you just saying that?
No, it's literally his brother.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's literally his brother. And Trevor was a captain or an assistance captain for that international team for the President's Cup. So we got some pretty good insight there. A lot of fun things come out of it when you have guys inside the ropes and all that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. So everyone go subscribe to Rick's YouTube channel right now and the podcast, and hit up The First Cut, which is the deepest I've heard, over on CBS Sports.
I've also heard that.
Did you acquire the rights to that song as the intro yet?
Yeah, we're working on that. We got the CBS lawyers on it.
There we go. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME, Twitter, Facebook, the Instagrams, fantasynational.com/PME. Get you 20% off. Highly recommend that. Also, if you want to get into a draw for 20 DraftKings dollars, smash the like button, leave your DraftKings handle, tell me your favorite play under $7,500. And if you want to get into a draw for 100 DraftKings dollars, subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, and something you like about this show, and you will be in that draw for 100 DraftKings dollars. Link to the Pat Mayo Experience Open No Right contest in the description of this video and podcast. Thank you all for watching. I will be back on Wednesday with Brad Evans, formerly of Yahoo Sports. We will be talking at length about how to integrate gambling and daily fantasy legitimately into live broadcasts. It's mainly about the Super Bowl, but it's going to be for all of the sports because, I can't go through that and not talk about golf. So I highly recommend you go check that out as well. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this weekend. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!